Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today I'm looking at Empyreal Spells and Steam, specifically the solo and co-op play that's enabled with the expansion. Quick disclaimer that I was sent a review copy of this one. With all my recent work and time designing solo variants for BattleCon and Exceed, I definitely have level 99 on the mind. Does Empyreal rise to the same level of enjoyment for me? Let's find out and get to the list. So first I'm going to start off with a con at number 5, but this could be a lot higher for you depending on what you're looking for. And what I'm talking about here is the price of the game, specifically the expansion where the solo and co-op decks are located. So the Empyreal base game, I've seen at pretty reasonable prices at online stores, like $60, and it is a beautiful package with great storage solutions. All of that is excellent. Now the expansion also has really high quality components, but the only place I've been able to find it is on Level 99's actual web store, and it's $60. And I'm not saying it's not worth $60 for the content, because there is a lot of cool new stuff in there, but the fact that being able to play solo and co-op is kind of locked behind this $60 additional purchase might be a tough pill to swallow if you have no plans to play it competitive. Now with that out of the way, let's get to the actual design of the game, starting with number 4, which is a mix for me, but leaning pro, and that's the AI and how your opposition runs in solo and co-op. So basically you've got 8 different companies to choose from, huge variety in how these companies play. They each have their own individual unique deck, and every time they go through their deck, they're going to add an upgrade card to it. So not only do you have 8 different companies to play against, but they'll upgrade in unique ways each time you play against them. So I love the variety here, and yet they're super simple to resolve. For the turn, you just flip a card up and it tells you like where to build tracks or what to do with them. It all runs very smoothly. The only reason I'm putting this down to a mix leaning pro is that there can be some annoyances with running their turn, in that figuring out which spaces they want to build on can be a little complicated. Not so much in solo, but more when you play a 2v2 co-op, or especially 3v3 co-op. It can be such a big board with so many hexes they could build into that sometimes it'll take you a little while just to figure out which hex they prefer with their little list of priorities. But it's basically all pro from here, starting with my number 3, which is the core action selection on each turn. It's basically a rondel mechanic in that you have this pawn that's moving along your train with all your train cars there, and you can pay mana to move further along, trying to get to the exact spot with the actions you need. That's already a really great choice. I like that. And you can fast track your sort of rondel movement, your conductor movement, by paying more to try to deliver more often, because whenever you get to the end of the track, you have to deliver, and those lead to delicious choices, trying to figure out like which cubes you want to focus on and trying to set up a good delivery every time you get down there. But then you can add on that you can rest on your turn instead of moving forward, which might seem like a consolation prize, but it actually lets you upgrade your train, which is something we'll get to in a second, and lets you get these special actions back. So it's a cooler kind of rest action than you might normally see. And I think the choices here, it is really yummy and a lot of fun. But hey, this is a train game, right? So let's get to number 2, another big pro, and that's the train laying. You don't lay track in this game, you just put your trains down on actual hexes, and this is great too. I just like building networks in these kind of games, that's always fun, but you're basically racing to these tokens spread around the board, and the tokens you're on are the ones you can ship when, like I said, you get to the end of your train track and can deliver. But my favorite thing is jockeying with the AI, because if you can get into the same hex they're in, and you can ship that good before they do, you are stealing points from them. And in competitive, when I've played it, it can feel almost too mean to do that, and it can make the game almost too cutthroat. But in solo and co-op, heck yes, just knock that AI down every time you can, because they're going to do the same thing to you. It's just a lot of hectic fun overall. And finally, my number 1 is another pro. I already talked about how great and varied the AI companies are, but let's talk about the variety and how you build out your company. So you've got 8 varied companies to choose from, just like the AI. You've got 2 captains for each company, which will give you a recurring power that's really cool. But then you also have these 3 other staff members you can hire along with your captain, and the huge variety in them will give you kind of a new engine each time you play. And speaking of engines, you can build out these spell cards that give you different actions and abilities when you land on them with the little rondel movement, and you can pay more mana to activate more of those. But yeah, overall, the awesome variety in upgrading, the huge number of paths you can pursue is a lot of fun and gives the game tons of legs between your company and the AI and how you kind of face off against them. So overall, some gamers might want to avoid Empyreal. First of all, if you hate train games and track laying games, although this does add a lot of other stuff, I think it still might leave you a little cold. And by the same token, if you hate kind of engine building games and economic games, it has some elements of that. And the other big potential warning, as I mentioned at the start, is that if you're just getting this for solo and co-op, it can be a bit pricey to pick up that expansion, at least until, I don't know, they do another reprint and maybe make it more widely available. But I think there's a good chance you will love this one if you're into Euros, if you're into economic games, if you're into train games. There are so many great elements from all of those kind of smashed together. If you love games with variety, because between the AI and your company, you have so much diversity here. And finally, something I don't think I mentioned enough in the review is that co-op works great because you can kind of work together to figure out which resources you're going to deliver and which ones your partner are going to deliver. And you can actually use each other's track to kind of ping pong around the board, because you get a discount jumping over each other. And come on, how many cooperative train and economic games are there? And hey, if you'd like to see a full playthrough of the solo in action, click the link that just popped up. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.